Be nice and cool in the factory at the moment.
It certainly is. I'm lucky I've got the heater on upstairs. So
yes, I remember my old panel beating days being in a very cold workshop.
Yes, the mornings are a bit chilly, but it seems to warm up a bit more during the day. So I think we're up to about 21 today, which is good.
Yeah. All right. So for those of you that are in the Business Brain Food Facebook group, g'day, welcome. Say g'day to Drew.
G'day, folks.
Drew is my guest for today. You are behind the scenes. We haven't hit record yet. We're going to hit record very, very shortly, and we're going to record an episode on why these guys started podcasting this year. Podcasting is fast becoming a very, very effective way to market your business, get the word out there, but it's still a very unique way. Not many competitors in their industry doing this. So Drew's going to talk to us a bit about why they started, how they got started, what gear they're using, how they're intending to use the podcast to grow their business. So lots and lots of good stuff to learn today. Now, whilst you're watching live here in the Business Brain Food group, you can actually ask questions as well. So maybe I can see Renee there. G'day, Renee and Patrick. How you guys going? Feel free to type hello into the comments so I know that that's all working. That'd be nice if you could do that for me. Hard to hear me, is it? Goodness me, that's no good. Why is it hard to hear me? Can you hear me okay, Drew?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know why it would be hard to hear me. It's something to do with the out. Have a quick look at the out, going back out. But if you can hear me, that's the audio going in there. I don't know what that would be. Maybe turn your volume up. You can hear Drew just fine, but not me. Okay, that's very weird, isn't it?
Hopefully they're not trying to tell you something there, Ben.
But you can hear, that's all right. Drew's the important one anyway.
I don't know about that.
Can you hear me just fine, Drew?
Yes.
Because you're getting the same audio that they're getting. So I don't know what that would be. All I can do is turn it up a little bit. Hello, test. Is that better? Hopefully that's a bit better. Hopefully my volume... Are you hearing me any louder now, Drew?
A little bit louder. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. So long as Drew sounds just fine and everything else is okay. G'day, Nicole. How you going? Thanks for joining us. All right, let's get this recording happening. You ready to go, buddy?
Ready when you are.
All right, so I'm going to read out the intro. Now, before I do that, I'm going to get you to top the show, which means what you're going to do is you're going to say, hi, it's Drew Blackman here from, and give us your 30-second or 10-second elevator speech.
Yes.
And then say, you're listening to the Business Brain Food podcast, okay? So you'll say something like, I would say, hi, it's Fewtrell here from Maxmyprofit. We help you build the business you imagine, and you're listening to the Business Brain Food podcast. So, Ren, you ready? You can do that.
Hi, it's Drew Blackman here from KRGS Doors. We manufacture a peace of mind for shop owners, allowing them to sleep at night knowing their products and store are secure. And you're listening to the Business Brain Food podcast.
How good's that? Sound is still low. Turn your volume up, Pat, maybe. I don't know why it would be low. Anyway, all right, we're going to get into the show. Can't focus on that technical issue at the moment because I don't know why it would be. I have no idea unless it's some setting in. I'll just have a very quick look in Facebook. I don't think there's anything I can do. Settings. Nothing I can really do there. We'll just have to put up with it. As long as you can hear Drew, all right, that'll be the main thing. All right, buddy, let's do this. Well, welcome back to the Business Brain Food podcast. This, my friends, is the podcast that is 100% devoted to taking you and your business to the next level. And the good news is, doesn't matter whether you're just brand new to this business thing, so maybe you're just scratching that entrepreneurial itch, or maybe like myself and you've been in business for a long, long time and you've got the scars and the wounds to prove it. No matter what, there is always something new we can do to take our business to the next level. And like I said, today is no different. Today, we are going to be joined by the amazing Drew Blackman from KRGS Doors. Very, very shortly, we're going to have a chat to him about podcasting. Podcasting is fast becoming a very, very important tool in marketing your business and a very unique tool. Not too many people have cottoned onto the idea of podcasting yet, but more and more people are using on-demand media to entertain themselves, whether it's in their car, in the gym, on the bus, whatever it might be, that on-demand media is becoming more and more popular, and it's a good way for you to position yourself as the expert and an authority in your industry. So we're going to get Drew onto the show very, very shortly. Before we do get Drew on, I want to remind you that today's podcast episode is brought to you by Maxmyprofit.com.au. The team at Maxmyprofit help you build the business you imagine. So if you imagine having a business that was more fun, maybe it made you some more money, maybe it was less clunky and stopped keeping you up at night. Maybe it was something that gave you the money and time to do that, whatever you're pleased with, but instead you've got something that is stressful, that you struggle to, from a cash flow point of view, something you even hate when you get out of bed each morning, and that quite often happens to people that start their own business. If that's what you've ended up with, then you need to talk to the team at maxmyprofit.com.au, and they'll help you build the business you imagined. Alrighty, so Drew Blackman from KRGS Doors, they started the business 13 years ago here. They are servicing Australia-wide. What they do is they manufacture doors for the commercial fit-outs across the country. So if you're a business of some sort, these guys may have made your doors, and if they haven't, they can make you some if you're getting a new fit-out, no doubt about that. They've got 19 in their team and are based here in Sydney, and have recently started a podcast. In fact, they started one in January 2020. So we have Drew, who is the mastermind and producer and host and dog's body of the podcast for KRGS, joining us today. G'day, Drew, and welcome to the show.
G'day, how you doing, Ben? Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure, buddy. My absolute pleasure. And you had me on your podcast. By the way, if you want a podcast to listen to, you need to go and find that. We'll make sure we get the link for that before the show is over, because I was on that one, and not just that episode, but you should listen to them all. So yes. It's great to have you here. Maybe tell us a bit about your background, because I think it's good to understand a bit about who it is that is running a podcast. Could anyone do this? So tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, thanks, mate. Anyone can do it. It's surprisingly how easy it is to start up. I've had no background in radio production, a little bit of IT knowledge through usually helping my mum and dad set up their TV, like most kids my age have to help mum and dad set up their TV and Foxtel and things like that. But yeah, I'd had no background. I was an avid listener, obviously, of the Business Brain Food podcast was one of my favourites, and a few others. And no one in our industry was doing anything. So I went to my brother Clayton, who is our managing director here, and said, hey, let's have a crack and let's do this. And that's how it all started. A little bit of Google, and we went out and found what was required and set it up and recorded our first one. Our first one was actually me interviewing Clayton. We put it out there. It got over 100 downloads in sort of about 2 weeks. And we went from there.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Exactly right.
So tell us, why a podcast? Well, I mean, you obviously love listening to podcasts. Did you put any thought into why podcast? Did you just go, I like podcasts, I'm going to do it?
Well, there was a bit of all of the above that. I like them, and you see now that a lot of people can release them, and it was a cheap way of advertising our business as well, to get to some target markets. In the past, we've been guilty, I call it ego marketing, where you see our name up on a big sign or on the side of a race car and things like that. But we've really had no measure to return of that investment. So we thought it's a cheap way to advertise, and it's something that we could do and also get it out to the market as well.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? You call it, I love that terminology, ego marketing, because it's not really helpful, is it? It doesn't help your prospect by you having your brand on a race car. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It strokes our ego to go, wow, this is us, but money spent in the right direction, not always.
Yeah, but definitely a podcast adds value, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and we can control it as well. And as you said, you're a guest on there. So the idea of our podcast was to talk to cool people with cool stories. We've got our suppliers on, we've got some of our staff on, some of our customers have been on as well. And then there's also people with general walks of life that we have a chat to, other small business owners that we can possibly throw out some ideas to help other business owners as well.
Yeah. And also I want to let everyone know as well, because a lot of people ask me over the years why podcasts, right? And it can be difficult to trace the results or the return on investment, right? There's not a lot of KPIs or metrics that, unlike analytics in Google or Facebook, you don't get all of that with podcasting. But can I just say, KRGS Doors are a client of Maxmyprofit, so I'll disclose that up front. How did you learn about Maxmyprofit?
It was actually through your podcast.
There you go. Through listening to the podcast.
Yes. Well, I did listen to a previous business podcast, and I still do. And it's an Aussie guy. He's based up in Brisbane. So I was listening to him and went into the iTunes to search other business podcasts, and the Business Brain Food one come up. And yeah, been a listener ever since.
Yeah. And so that just, I mean, and you're not the only one that's come through the podcast. So to me, it's a great avenue for people to get to know you, because I'm sure, I know when I've listened to a podcast and then I actually meet the host in person, I feel like I know them.
And that was one of our plans too, to put a bit of a voice or a face to the brand as well. Can I just apologise to everyone listening that the saw's going off in the background? I am still at work. But every time we record a podcast, our own one, the guy that operates the saw or the grinder tends to go off with the grinder. So I apologise if you can hear the saw and the grinder in the background.
I love it. I think it's what makes your podcast unique. But, people would pay for those sound effects. And here they are. They're just a natural part of your day.
Yes. So that it does goes to show that work is going ahead still.
Fantastic. Now, so let's talk about, so the benefits of podcasting is that you can market your business. It's cost effective, right? It doesn't cost a lot of money to set up. It takes a fair bit of time investment, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And as I said, I was no trained guru. We use a free program called GarageBand that I hit record on. The original setup cost us about $1,800, and that included a new Mac laptop. We use a bell ringer mixer. We've got 4 microphones and 4 sets of headphones. And originally, before this unusual time, we were actually getting people to come into our business here, into our studio, and recording live. And then I'd go through and do the editing and cutting and take out the ums and ahs and that type of thing and make it flow and put in some music and introductions. And then just recently, we discovered how to record via Zoom and via Skype that plugs straight into the mixer, so we can do it remotely.
Yeah, this COVID-19 thing's really forced people to have to be remote and be efficient. So let's go back in time then, because I'd love to know, you said you went and bought a new computer and you went and bought all this gear. How long was it from deciding that you're going to create a podcast to you releasing your first episode?
It was probably about 6 weeks. So we threw the idea around and had a chat and sort of what's our target, or what do we aim to do or get out of it. So we put all that sort of in black and white, and then went, this is going to work. I did some research on what we require through our IT guy. Went to a place here in Sydney. It's actually a DJ type of place, and said, this is what I want to do. What do I need? And they gave me everything that I needed at a reasonable price. Come back, set it all up, had a bit of a play around, recorded voiceovers and that type of thing just to get an idea, and had a play around with GarageBand. And they said, okay, let's do our first episode. And then we use a platform. It's called Libsyn, 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 that you upload your MP3 file to and some images, and then they put it out onto all the podcast players, onto YouTube, gives us a link for our website and things like that as well.
And so how did you go about learning what you had to do? Because I think a lot of people, when I talk to them about podcasting, they get really lost in understanding what to do. And what I'm talking about is things like setting up the show, getting the show into the things like iTunes, iHeartRadio, etc. I mean, where did you learn all of that?
It was through the Libsyn program that it is fairly basic, but it suits our needs. That as I said, you upload the MP3 file, and then it takes you through the steps to put your show notes here and title here, and then you can select of a 10 or 12 different programs that it then goes out to, and it uploads it automatically.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so much easier than it used to be. When I first started podcasting, so even before Business Brain Food, I had another show back in, I don't know, goodness me, I'm talking 15 years ago, and it was really, really quite complex. And I did 8 episodes, and I think because it was so hard, I just stopped doing it. It's called pod fading.
Yes.
You know, pod fading is the technical term when you start a podcast and then you don't continue after about 10 episodes. And then when I started Business Brain Food even 5 years ago, it still was a little bit trickier to set up. It sounds to me now that Libsyn has made it really easy.
It certainly is. It's one file. I download it straight out of GarageBand onto a USB, upload it. I use Canva. I think you mentioned that in one of your previous videos, that one of your products a couple of weeks ago, that Canva to do the artwork. And again, it's saved as a JPEG, upload that. So that's the artwork. And then it goes out. It even includes it on YouTube, that people can tune into YouTube. There's no video. It's just the imagery of the actual cover, and then the audio as well.
Yeah, how good is that, eh? So you can have your content going out everywhere, and it's nice and easy. You just got to upload it to one place. Now tell us, what are you, like, now that you've got the show up and running, how did you decide on the format? So you said you had this idea for a show, and it was a chat. What did you say? Chat with cool dudes or something like that? Or
cool people with cool stories.
There we go. Cool people with cool stories.
That's why you were on the Ben.
Well, I've got stories. I don't know if I'm cool. But so you came up with this theme, and how have you now, used that to give your format its warmth, I guess, or because I think a lot of people struggle with that. It's how do you record each episode? Do you have a cheat sheet you read off each time, a set of questions? Tell us about how you go through formatting the show?
Yeah, certainly. And I know you are a bit of a guru in podcasting, and you just rattle them off and ask the questions and things like that. But with me, I give our guests sort of the 10 or 12 outline questions that we ask, and then just go from there. So it is a bit of a chat, but it gives them some ideas so they can come prepared with stories and an idea of what I'm going to ask. But it's similar to the asking, okay, what was the issue? What was your outcome, or what was your action, and then what was your outcome? So continue to probe and get those answers as well.
And did you decide on a particular length for each episode, or what did you do there?
We didn't really decide on to say, hey, this is what we want to do, but we find the chat and around the questions, and we only might have 8 or 10 questions, usually goes for about 40 minutes, and we find that's long enough. A lot of them are around their business and how they started, and what they're looking for in the future, and how they want to achieve those goals. And then at the end, I sort of have what I call our fast 5, and it might be, what's your last meal? What's your drink of choice? And I always finish with, if heaven does exist, what would God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? It's just a bit of fun, just to get to know them a little bit better.
Quite a confronting question. You would say, turn around and go.
That is a common answer, to say you're not timing yet.
Yeah. Well, you can only wish that was the case, eh?
Yes.
So, all right. So tell us a bit about gear then. So you said you spent $1,800. Take the MacBook out of it, because most people have got a computer. What was the remainder value of the gear that you bought?
I think our mixer was about $400. It's just a bell ringer. It's got capabilities for 4 microphones and 4 sets of headphones. And then I'm just actually looking, it was a bell ringer, 4 microphones, some microphone stands. So it was pretty basic setup. I think our headphones that we're using are about $30 each. So they're not whiz-bang quality or not whiz-bang price-wise. And then, as I said, just recently we discovered how to record from the TV into the mixer, and I think that was $100 or so in leads, and a converter which apparently converts it from digital to analog audio, so it can upload in that sense.
Yeah, but it's all you need, is it? You don't need much.
No, and it was, to be honest, I was surprised how cheap it was, because you see some of these setups and they are whiz bang, and yeah, we got away with it. I felt fairly reasonable. And again, that return on investment, looking at getting our name out, it wasn't a lot of money to spend.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a bit about that. So you mentioned that your very first show got 100 downloads. That's pretty cool. Well done. Are you promoting it in a certain way? How are you going about making that happen?
Well, promoting, we do it in a couple of different ways. So it's all over our socials, our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Then we also put it up. Not every episode I send out to we got a database of about 12,000 people. So I don't send every episode out, but I do send relevant episodes out to those 12,000. And then mainly through, we put it in our signature, a link in our signature on our emails to say, hey, check out the latest episode and things like that. Also, too, with our guests, we allow them to use it in their socials or advertise it as well. So it's a little bit of advertising for them to say, hey, our CEO or our managing director was on this podcast, have a listen.
Yeah. And that's a really good thing to do as well, because it gets them sharing your content out and about as well.
Well, and it's easy for them as well, that it's all there. I just send them the link and they forward it on to that they're able to use it. So, and the easy part is, I find it's a bit like going on a first date, that you find if you let them talk about themselves, they will spill their beans. So I'll give them the rough questions, but you let them talk about themselves and you just listen and probe them a little bit and they spill their beans.
Yeah, and the rest happens. That's it.
Yes.
I do love about podcasting. I know I've done a few solo episodes and they're always harder because you've got to do all the content yourself. But something like this, where I'm asking you the questions, all I need to do is think of questions that people – and I'm a naturally inquisitive person, right? So I'm like a 2-year-old. I'll just say why? And that makes it, that makes it very, very simple for me. So long as I stay on track as an interviewer and you are able to give me good answers and I can probe to get the answers out of you, because that's what people want when they tune. Well, I know when I tune into a podcast, I really do want just off the cuff, from the heart, shoot from the hip type answer. Like, that's what I like listening to. So I guess that's why I like creating that type of content.
Yeah, certainly. And when you have your own podcast, you listen to other podcasts a hell of a lot differently. And I know from day one episode and we're up to episode 7 now, it's changed a lot, even just the questions I ask and how I ask them, and it's a lot more naturally. So I was quite comfortable behind a microphone, but yeah, it's become a lot more natural now. And even listening to yourself, I pick up little bits and tips and tricks on what to throw in and what to say at what certain times and things like that as well.
So what are some of the things you've changed? I mean, 7 episodes is not a lot. So what have you learned in the first? Let's maybe take your top 3 to 5 lessons in the first 7 episodes.
Well, even around just telling people at the start and at the end also to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player, so you don't miss any future episodes. And I know that's one of the things that you say at the end, not only on this podcast, on the other one you host as well, Paint and Panel, that you say the same thing. Hey, if you liked it, leave us a review, things like that, just to get people engaged. Mm-hmm. Also, too, we've now thrown in a couple of ads for our products in the middle. So at the start, we just had a blanket type of, hey, this is KRGS Doors. We manufacture roller grills and shutters. Thanks for listening. But now in the middle, we've got one of the girls in the office here to record a voiceover, just tell them about a different product each time. And it only goes for about 10 seconds, but we just throw that to break it up, a little bit of music underneath and things like that. So just those 2 little bits, just to make it sound a bit more natural and a bit more professional as well.
Yeah. And did you go back and do you listen to your episodes at all yourself?
Yes. So, well, I listen to them when I edit them. So I do the cut and paste and it's amazing how boring your voice can sound after editing and cutting out the ums and the ahs and things like that.
I remember those days. I haven't edited one of my podcasts for a few years now, maybe 4 years, but I did the same thing in the beginning, right? I think we all start in the same place. And you know what? There were times I nearly gave up. I mean, that's the thing, is it's easy to get lost in it because you don't get a lot of great feedback and you may not get a review for a while. Maybe no one will leave you a review and you go, is anyone actually listening to this? Does anyone actually care? But all it takes for me is one client says to me, hey, I love listening to the podcast, and go, that's it. It's all worth it if I get one client tell me they love listening to the podcast, because really, if you can connect with people that you normally wouldn't be able to connect with easily on a regular basis, and that you said 100 downloads, for you to ring those 100 people in a day would be hard. But to know that those 100 people have downloaded your voice and listening to your message of their own free will, and they're probably going to do that every week or every fortnight whenever the podcast comes out, I find that's kind of like magic. I don't know about you.
It's very humbling too, and I'll even get phone calls and someone will want to order or talk about business, and then at the end of it they'll say, oh hey, I've been listening to your podcast as well, and you get really humbled and you get a little bit proud as well, saying, hey, I've done this. And as I said, that we only started in January, and you can have pod fade, but I do look at the regular numbers of the downloads, and I think we're sitting sort of around about the 700 mark. But I think in January we had 0 downloads because we didn't have a podcast.
Yeah. And that's the reality. If you don't have a podcast, you're going to have no downloads. We can guarantee that.
Yes.
And a lot of people get hung up on the numbers. It's not about the numbers; it's about the quality of the numbers. Especially for you guys. I mean, just tell the audience a little bit about who your audience is. Who's ideal to listen to your podcast?
So we, as I mentioned earlier, we manufacture roller grills and shutters for shop fronts. So you'll see our doors in your Westfields and your Stocklands and that type of thing. So our customers are shop fitters and designers and architects. So that's sort of the aim that we're looking for. And we don't always talk business as such. We've had a couple of our suppliers on. An upcoming episode, we've got a female rugby league player on. She just talks about her life in general and things like that. So it's not all business, but we just wanted to provide great content as well.
Yeah. And I think that's what it's all about is great content is always going to give you the best results. And if you create good content, so how do you go about working out what content you're going to do? Do you have like a list of topics, or what do you do?
Yeah, well, I do a little bit of research on the person that we're interviewing. So if they're a managing director or a CEO of a company, we talk about their company, and similar to your introduction earlier, when they started, how they started, how many employees they have. And then I'll ask them some general business questions, or what do they look for in an employee, in an employer, and things like that. What do they put their success down to? How do they market their business? Just general things like that. Then if it's a sporting person, we'll just ask them around their sporting career, how they started, where they want to see the future, and then finish it off with those fast 5 sort of fun questions.
Yeah, which is great. Fantastic. So how are you planning on using the content? I mean, just uploading it onto Lisbon and putting it out through the podcast players is one way, but are you using the content in any other way?
Well, I'm planning on, I'd like to put it all, sort of get the wording of the programs and then put it all together. And that might possibly be a book down the track. Who knows? That's something simple that we could certainly send out to our customers saying, yeah. Hey, because you've got to really attack that. You've got your listeners, and then you've got your people that want to watch the videos, and then there's the readers as well that may want to read them as well. Yeah.
And in your industry, is there anybody else doing anything like this?
Not that I'm aware of. And that was one of the things why we started it, to say, hey, no one else is doing it. Let's have a crack and go from there.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I say to people that think about starting a podcast. The quicker you get it started, the more episodes you'll have before somebody else decides to start as well. Not that I worry about competition. I mean, there's plenty of business podcasts out there, so that doesn't really matter. What we find is once one person is a podcast listener, they'll listen to multiple, or they won't just listen to one. And you might get your favorite, but some people might hate listening to me. Or they might hate listening to you and your brother. But the thing is that all you need to do is get some listeners that love listening to you on a regular basis, and that's the fundamentals of a great show. So besides turning into a book, have you thought about taking excerpts from it and using little snippets of audio or anything like that?
Yeah, certainly. And part of that Lisbon program, that there's an app sort of within it. It's called Headliner, and you can take sort of up to a minute of the audio, and then it has the photo. So I usually record our episodes via video. I use my iPhone. I set it up in the background behind me here to record our episodes. And I just take screenshots of the actual person. So it might be Ben sitting up on the screen and myself and Clayton, my brother here, just talking. And then we just throw in the audio underneath it. And it's got got like the wave line that sort of shows the audio moving. So it's a little bit more interactive rather than just a still shot or some wording as well. And I've only discovered that, I think, in the last two episodes, which has been sort of the last month. Before that, I was just taking a screenshot and typing some text onto it of a little snippet of a quote someone said.
Yeah. And so let's just reiterate too. So besides sort of jumping on the Lisbon and using the tools they've got, you didn't really do any training or anything, did you?
Zero training.
Yeah.
Zero training. On GarageBand, I taught myself. I did ask a gentleman of a podcast that I listened to, hey, what program do you use for that? And he told me that. I went on, had a play, and I think that cost us sort of $22 US a month to subscribe to it and be able to upload our episodes and things like that.
Yeah, nice and simple, eh? Like it doesn't get any simple. And there's the thing, you don't have to be scared about starting a podcast. If you have been thinking about it, it's a great tool. And it doesn't, I mean, this is an interview style podcast. You can do them in many different ways. They can be very short daily tips. I used to have one called Daily Business Tips, which is what, you see on the microphone here, and that I used to run as well. And that was a bit more, I found that harder because that was just me creating the content without any guests. I really enjoy interaction. I enjoyed interviewing people. So for me, it was natural that I continued to drive this podcast. But you don't have to do that. Your podcast can be anything. I've seen podcasts where people strip audio out of their videos on a weekly basis. A podcast can be anything, but you just do not have to be scared with the technology, because I think now it's so simple. Anyone can do it. In fact, have you seen the new product? When you were researching as to what mics and stuff to buy, did you see other products that were more like a whole podcast suite by Rode? Did you see those?
I did. I certainly did see them. And I think some of them advertised and was giving them away to some schools to be able to do their own podcast recently.
Yes.
So yeah, that I did see that was a suite, and it's got some buttons where you can insert music and audio straight away that's already been pre-recorded.
Yes. And what drew you down the track that you went? So what made you decide to go with the mixer and the 4 mics that you bought?
I think, well, it was cheaper in that sense. And simplicity. It was sort of just plug and play.
Yeah.
And I spoke to our IT guy, who's an external guy, and he sort of said, hey, this is all you need. And the free app, GarageBand on Mac, which is you just hit record, and then I record everything and then go through and re-listen to cut and paste and delete and insert ads and insert music and things.
And look, you've got 4 microphones. You don't need that if you're not going to have 4 guests, right? So, and these days, you only need 1 really, because if you use Zoom, and people can have really good quality Zoom audio now. Like the days of it hopping and jumping and skipping and whatever, they're all gone. We don't see that very often anymore. I find the audio over the internet is really, really reliable.
Yes.
Have you found that?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. And even with Maxmyprofit, we host a lot of our meetings with our business coach through Zoom now, rather than having to travel from your offices out to us at Preston's, which could be like 40 minutes. It's all done via Zoom, and it's so easy.
All via Zoom. Now tell us, once you've recorded an episode, how long is it before you release it? Are you doing batching of your episodes? Or are you recording them much in advance?
It varies. It depends on what the availability is of the guests, and to get our guests, as I said, it's our suppliers. We've had a couple of our customers on as well, yourself, and we've sort of gone through our phone going, who'd be an interesting story to tell? And even some of our mates that are other small business owners we've got on. So it hasn't been, how are we going to get all these guests? We're just sort of, hey, what can we do here? Who can we approach? But it's probably, from go to woe, it's probably about a fortnight. We've got about 5 or 4 in the can ready to go now. Your one is actually being released tomorrow. So that was recorded about a week and a half ago. So we don't want to overload and flood the market, but we sort of aim to do one every fortnight.
Yeah, okay. And there's studies done that say once a week or once a fortnight is good. It depends on how you're using it, right? And I think that's the key with podcasting is that if you're, servicing an existing market, like you've got a database already, you've got you're putting on your emails, you're not looking to get 400,000 downloads. What you're looking to do is get very targeted downloads, aren't you?
Well, it is targeted, and it's also there to fly the flag of our business as the trusted advisor. And it may not be tomorrow, and it may not be next week, but it may be next year that someone's looking for a roller shutter. They go, oh, hang on, I stumbled across that podcast. Let me have a chat to these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you put those little ads in, is that also educating your current customers as to what's available that maybe they don't know about?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. And that's an idea that we try and mix it up with the product, give them a little bit of information on the product size or the specifications, just a different way rather than them having to read the brochure or go onto our website.
Yeah. And have you toyed with the idea of getting sponsors?
I have, but I haven't really gone down that avenue as yet, being sort of 7 episodes in where we are only new. But yeah, it's certainly something that we'd love to look at down the track.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think sometimes, it just depends on what your motives are for the show. It doesn't cost a lot to produce. So you don't need sponsors, do you, really, to pay for it? It's just nice to have.
It certainly is. And really, it's a matter of, now that we've got all the gear, it's be nice to recoup some of those costs, but it's a matter of just time, my time of getting the guests, doing the research, recording, and then the editing. So it's not a hell of a lot of time, but it is time.
So how much time do you think you're putting into it? Like when you edit a show, have you ever timed yourself to see how long it takes you?
No, not really. And it also depends on the guest on how much they and ah. Your one, actually, I'll be honest with you, was pretty easy because it was more of a chat. And that's the way we wanted it as well, that was sort of 3 blokes sitting around just having a chat.
Inwag. Yeah.
We didn't put any restrictions on it. And I'll be honest with you, there are a couple of swear words in there and that type of thing, but that's our industry as well. But from go to woe, probably 2 to 3 hours without interruptions.
Yeah. Yeah. So people just need to be aware of that. I don't actually edit any ums and ahs out anymore. We used to do that. So I just decided that wasn't worth our time anymore. So we just leave them in. But people, it's good for people to know that for every episode, there's probably a few hours of work outside of the episode. Like I said, finding the guests. And right now, so when you find a guest, you said you were just going through your phone and you're talking to suppliers, some clients, you're just thinking about it. Because, that's the theme of your show, isn't it? Cool people with cool stories. So you're just looking for a cool person that can tell a story?
That could have a story that they could share with us. As I said, we interviewed some other small business owners. We've got a female rugby league player on, yourself, some of our suppliers, one of our customers. I think episode 2 or episode 3 was one of our customers who actually gave us our first order in 2007. So he's still a customer now, but we got him back and we spoke about that and things.
Brilliant.
Like that.
What a great guest.
And I think for other small business owners, that they could go through their sort of database and go, who else could I use, or who's been a customer a long time, and approach them going, why are you a customer of ours and what do you enjoy about the service, and then start from that sense.
Yeah. And it's just such a good medium, I think, for like you said, making yourself the expert or authority in your industry. It's such an easy way to do it, because as soon as someone's behind a microphone or behind a camera, people see you in a different light.
Yes.
For whatever reason, and it's not, maybe because it's not comfortable for a lot of people to do it. Have you had any guests say no to you yet when you've approached people?
Not say no. The couple have put me on hold due to different circumstances. About 6 weeks ago, when COVID first hit, we were aiming to have, and the government come out, we were aiming to have our accountant on to talk about, hey, what can we do with the government benefits and things like that. But the day we were supposed to record, the night before, Scott Morrison was on the TV releasing all these details. So he was under the pump the next day with all his clients. So he's put me on hold for now, but no one's actually come out and definitely said, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah. And you'll find that, right? When you invite people on your podcast, most people go, yeah, I'll do that. And what I found over time, Drew, which is going to be encouraging for you, is people will start contacting you. So,
Well, that's one of them tips that we sort of put at the start to say, hey, if you're interested in coming on, drop us a line and we'll see what we can do. We're open to anyone really that's, as I said, that's got a cool story that wants to have a chat. We throw it out there so they can contact us.
I would definitely put that in your sign off of your podcast. So if you're a cool person with a cool story, contact me, because it makes life much easier when they're coming to you. I remember when I first started mine and I was having to contact people all the time, trying to find people. It was very difficult. These days, but the challenge I have now is we get a lot of people contacting us, and some of them, they just want to flog stuff, and I'm not interested in having them on my podcast, so it's a bit of a challenge, getting the right balance, because you want a lot of value. You want people to be able to get a lot of value out of listening to your podcast. All right, so let's wrap this up, bring it in for a landing. We're running out of time. What would your advice be to somebody that's listening to this right now, thinking about starting their own podcast?
Put it simply, do it. Just do it. And even if they want to have a chat offline, I'm more than happy to have a chat to them, talk it through them. It is fairly simple. Or if they're not comfortable behind a mic, I'm more than happy for a small financial reward to even host it for them. We've got all the gear here. So if someone was interested in going, I'm not too sure where to start, by all means, I can help out in that sense as well. But yeah, just do it. And I think I've even heard you say, Ben, that we've got so much technology sitting in our pocket that you could really start out just by recording on your phone. Hit the record button on your phone. The quality may not be there, but hey, start somewhere. And I even know last year I just started recording myself on my iPhone, just talking about stuff in the factory about, hey, we're manufacturing these doors, or we've got some guys out on site here today at Circular Key, and I was on site and I just videoed myself and uploaded it to Facebook, uploaded it to YouTube, and it's only a minute of 30 seconds, but people were engaged, and it just puts that face to a name. And I know you mentioned it the other day about that air conditioner guy, that if he was on site and it was frozen over or whatnot, hey, 30-second video on how to fix the air conditioner, and this will be costing you money. It's so simple, and it goes out, and it's so easy.
Yeah, such good advice, mate. Such good advice, and so good of you to offer that, to help anybody out as well. I mean, it's part of what makes you such a good guy, Drew. Makes you a cool dude, a cool person yourself. One last question: have you seen a return yet? Have you had anything come back as a result that you could say that's from the podcast, or is it still too early?
Not definitely, but then again, some of the people that we're sending it out to haven't engaged us before, but have now. So whether it was a designer that we haven't heard or we haven't used us before, but they've all of a sudden started to send us some plans to quote on. So I don't know if that's 100%, but it might be that, hey, we're just flying the flag that we're in front of someone.
I think it's definitely part of the puzzle, my friend. When it comes to marketing, people buy from people they know, like, and they trust. How else do you build a relationship these days? I think this is magic marketing. When you can get into somebody's ears for half an hour or an hour a week or a fortnight or whatever it might be, and you've got their attention for what else gets their attention for half an hour or 40 minutes? There's not too many things that do.
And I even know myself, I hardly listen to the radio now in the car. I'm out and about on the road with sales and things like that, and it's podcast after podcast after podcast, and it's a range. I'll listen to some sport, I'll listen to some business, I'll listen to some comedy, but it's never the radio.
All right, so good plug for your podcast. Where do people find it?
They can find it on our website, www.krgsdoors.com.au/podcasts, or search KRGS Doors on your favourite podcast player.
There you go. Go and check out KRGS Doors' new podcast. 7 episodes in. You might be listening to this a year down the track, and it'll be 59 episodes in, or whatever it might be. Who knows? But certainly go and have a listen to their podcast. Even if you're not in their industry, I recommend go and have a listen to it, because you'll get a bit of a feel for how they're running their podcast and what it is they're doing, and get some ideas for yourself. Like Drew said, he's taken ideas from other people's podcasts. I think it's a great way to work out what you're going to do and get comfortable with it. Once again, mate, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and a bit about your experience starting your podcast.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for having me. And as I said, if anyone wants to contact me to either host these or have a chat about starting their own, by all means, I'm available.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put links into the show notes, gang, so you can head across to businessbrainfood.com.au and just search KRGS or Drew, and you'll find this podcast episode. It is episode 253, if you want a real easy way to find it. You head across there. We'll have all the links in the show notes. Our amazing show note writer, Mike. Shout out to you, Mr. Mikey Borman. He will make sure all the links are in the show notes for you to click on and make your life really, really easy. Just a reminder that today's podcast episode was brought to you by Maxmyprofit.com.au. The team at Maxmyprofit help you build the business you imagined. So if you imagine having a business that was more profitable, maybe it gave you more time to do the things you love in life, and maybe it was a little less stressful, but instead you've got something that's clunky and unfun, then you need to head across to Maxmyprofit.com.au and talk to the team about helping you build the business you imagined. Alrighty, well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Ben Fewtrell. You've been absolutely fantastic for tuning in to the end of the podcast. Until next time, have a very profitable day. See ya. All right. Thank you, Drew, and Facebook Livers.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure, buddy. Good episode. We love that content. Any questions from the Facebook Livers? I think I got my audio sorted about, I don't know, a third of the way in.
It get a little bit louder halfway through, but it was all good.
I realised there was a button ticked in my Zoom that was unticked, rather, with automatically adjust my audio. And because we use a mixer to feed audio in, it can be different over here. You know, we can have the outputs up high and the inputs on the Zoom, because we record in a Zoom recorder. So for those of you that are on the Facebook Live, I'll quickly show you my setup down here so you can see what I use. I just use this thing here. It's a Zoom recorder. And that's a digital recorder. This thing here is a telephone interface. We don't use this anymore, but that was a device I bought. The phone line goes into there. And that means that you can then, rather than using a telephone, you use this device. So you still needed the telephone to make the call, but it plugged in through this device here, and all the audio went through into the desk. So it's all still plugged in, but we just don't use it anymore because of Skype and Zoom. And then we've got this almighty big mixing desk that you also do not need anymore. I'm not sure what Drew's looks like.
Hang on a second, and I'll grab mine.
Yeah.
I can unplug this.
And by the way, if you're in the Business Brain Food group, you're getting an exclusive look at this. You do not get this by listening to the podcast, which is kind of cool, isn't it? Where is he? He's coming back.
There. That's ours.
There you go. So that's a Behringer. What is it? An 802 or something, or
1204 USB.
So a USB microphone.
So yeah, and then the mics just plug into the top of it, and we got the MacBook Pro. That's about it.
How good's that, eh? Nice and simple. So it doesn't have to be complex. And you know, this scares a lot of people when they see this. But remember, we also do video production in here. If I show you down that end of the studio. Okay, so we actually do video production, and all of those microphones and stuff down there also plug into this. So, you know, we have a little bit of a different need. The other thing, like you were talking about phones now can actually do the job as well. I have seen people plugging in the new Rode Go microphone, which is a little wireless microphone, and you can get a handle for it and you can use it to interview people. And, you know, if that's all you buy, that gets you started. You know, what a great way to get started. So
I've even seen some people use like a Bluetooth type of microphone. Again, the quality might not be there. It just clips to the lapel and taps into the phone.
Yeah. Absolutely. Nice and easy. All right. Well, thanks again, buddy, for joining us. Thank you for joining us live on Facebook. If you're watching in, I'm going to end the Facebook Live now.